Section 7 of Library Essays, Papers Related to the Work of Public Libraries. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Verla Vieira. Library Essays, Papers Related to the Work of Public Libraries by Arthur Elmore Bostwick. Library Statistics. It is a valuable exercise to examine into the origin and uses of the things that we have been accustomed to take for granted and to regard almost as part of the accepted order of nature. The result will often be startling, and it will always be salutary if the examiner be sane and conservative. Therefore, a very good way to begin a discussion of statistics is to query whether they are of present value at all, or whether they are old-fashioned rubbish and had better be discarded. Statistics are the numerical statement of results or facts. Now thousands of individuals and thousands of bodies, families, clans, associations, that accomplish much in this world, go on very well without keeping any record at all of what they do. This is indisputable. On the other hand, we shall see that as work is done well and carefully, there is an increasing disposition to make and keep a record of results. And as the work extends in scope and complexity, the record, too, becomes more complex. Take, for instance, the record of so apparently simple a transaction as the payment and receipt of money. The individual who has little of it to receive and disperse may go all his life without keeping so much as a cash account, much less a set of books. He may even spend a considerable income in the same way, including the maintenance of a household and the support of a family, and he may, on the whole, do it wisely and well. Yet of two men of the same means, one of whom should conduct his affairs thus, while the other kept a rational system of household and personal accounts, the latter would universally be regarded as pursuing the better course. And as we pass from this to the conduct of a business, we recognize that the man who engages in commerce without keeping proper accounts is a fool and courts failure, and that the larger the business and the more widespread the interests, the more complicated and extensive must be the bookkeeping. A large commercial concern may thus employ a special department with a large staff of men simply to keep record of its financial transactions. This is probably the most ancient kind of statistical record, and the one whose usefulness is most generally recognized. In like manner, another common and useful statistical record, the inventory, or list of articles on hand, although not commonly and regularly taken by the individual, becomes absolutely necessary in the smallest kind of business, and without it, the merchant can have absolutely no idea of whether he is conducting his business at a profit or a loss. When we go on further and examine the conduct of great commercial or manufacturing concerns, we find that the statistical department becomes of increasing importance. The details collected by it multiply, and the staff of persons whose sole duty it is to collect and discuss them may be very considerable. That a great manufacturing company would waste time and money on a task of no value is inconceivable, and there is thus a very strong presumption that statistics are worth something. Even where bodies of men have so little power or corporate action that they cannot collect statistics for themselves, it is generally deemed a proper expenditure of the public money to do so at the common cost. Hence governments maintain great census bureaus, whose duty it is not only to count heads every few years, but to tell the farmer how much he raises, the merchant how much merchandise he exports, and so on. Is the free public library an institution that will be benefited by the collection, tabulation, and discussion of the results of its work, so far as they can be numerically expressed? What are the objects of such collection in the instances above enumerated? In the first place, they are to satisfy mere curiosity. If such curiosity is trivial, the collection of statistics is evidently useless, and I am afraid that more than a little of it, public and private, falls under this head. But curiosity, even when it goes no further, may be perfectly legitimate. Especially is this so about one's own affairs. When a man is attempting anything, he is naturally curious to know whether he has succeeded or not, and to find out, if possible, precisely how far he has gone in the desired direction. He may have property enough to support him beyond all doubt, but it is quite right that he should want to keep a list of his stocks and bonds, and to know whether they have risen or fallen in value during the year. Still further, Curiosity about other people's affairs may be legitimate, as, for instance, when one is responsible for their proper conduct in greater or less degree. In the same way, the trustees of a free public library, representing the public at large, by whom the library is supported and carried on, have a right to know all possible particulars regarding the way in which their librarian has carried on his work and the results he has reached in it, and the municipality in turn should require of the trustees a strict account of the funds that they have administered. All this information, as far as it can be stated numerically, constitutes a mass of statistics, and this one reason amply justifies its collection, and would justify a much larger number of tables than is usually given in a library report, provided only that the information is to the point and is or should be in public demand. But we cannot stop here. A free library, it is true, is not a money-making concern, but it certainly should be run on business principles. The public puts into it a large sum of money and has a right to expect certain returns, which are none the less definite that they cannot themselves be represented in dollars and cents. The library statistic books are therefore, in a way, the records of the business. They show whether it is being conducted conservatively or wastefully, at a profit or at a loss. And as all these record books are open, they enable us, or should enable us, to make instructive comparisons between the methods and results of one institution and those of another. But even this is not all. It is a maxim of this strenuous age that all things are good or bad according to the results to which they lead, not in the narrow sense that the end justifies the means, but in the broader sense that we must know things by their fruits. The man who said, "I go, sir," and went not, was judged by his acts, not by his words, and no matter how much knowledge we store up, and how many tables of data we collect, we shall be derelict in our duty if we regard this as an end in itself. The state of mind in which the Mahatma spends his life in impassivity, contemplating inward things and making no outward motion, may have certain advantages, but it is not consonant with the spirit of this age and this land. By which I mean that when we have found out something from our statistics, we must do something with it. More, we must so direct our statistical investigations that they bear directly on a possible course of action. This is done by the great manufacturing concerns that maintain statistical departments, but we all use statistics in this way. If a boy wants to go to the circus, he first looks through his pockets to see whether he has enough cash. Here is the germ of a statistical investigation conducted for the specific purpose of getting information on which future action is to be based. Here sometimes, where the opportunity of collecting statistics is very great, and expense is no object, is a good excuse for gathering a great deal that would seem to be useless, with the expectation that some of it may turn out to be interesting, and may suggest some line of work that had not previously been thought of. To go as far as this, the institution must be large and rich. But how many of us do anything with our statistics? How many collect statistics along special lines to assist in deciding what we shall do along those lines? How many of us, rather, consider that, when our statistics have been collected, a disagreeable task has been done, and put them behind us till the year rolls round again? Perhaps we have had enough now of the philosophy of statistics. Let us see what concrete kinds of statistics are necessary, and in what order of importance. First comes an itemized account of receipts and expenditures. This is so obvious that it is not generally considered as library statistics at all, but it may and should be extended a little. Look at all your other tables of statistics through financial spectacles. Compare your receipts with your population. How much does your town give per capita for library work? Compare this figure with the same for other towns. Compare your expenditures with your circulation. How much has your library cost you per book circulated? Compare your expenditure for books with the number purchased, and tell us the average cost of a book and how this compares with the cost in former years. Do this for a half-dozen other phases of your work, and put the result in as many brief, crisp sentences. If you haven't room in your report, cut out some of the platitudes. We all insert them in moments of weakness, and once in, it sometimes requires an earnest search to detect and expunge them. Next in importance comes an account of your books, how many there are in the library, on what subjects, and how many have been added during the year in each subject, how many gifts you have had, how many books have been lost. This involves taking a careful inventory at least once a year. You see, I am putting this before any account of circulation. A good many libraries take no inventory, or take it at too infrequent intervals because they have no time. You might as well say you have no time to keep a cash account. This is business and comes first. Leave off counting your circulation if you must, but keep count of the public property in your care as conscientiously as you keep count of the money in your cash drawer. If you can do nothing else, make a simple enumeration of volumes without taking account of classes, but do it thoroughly. The trouble with the inventory is that, like the old-fashioned house cleaning, it is usually done all at once and becomes an annual bugbear. One way of making it easier is to spread it over the year, counting and reporting one class every month, and treating it as a part of the regular routine. In this category of statistical records comes the list of your books, which you must surely have in some form, even though you may not have a session book, shelf list, and dictionary catalog. For statistical purposes indeed, the last named may be left out of account. Next in order of importance comes statistics of circulation. You should know how many books are given out for home use every day, and how these are distributed among the classes. Do not adhere too strictly to your classification. Subdivide and combine your classes so that the results will be of interest to your particular public. Always remember in discussing these statistics that they are not so much a record of work done as a rough proportional indication of that work, and are therefore of relative, not of absolute interest. You are not to attach any meaning to the fact, taken by itself, that your circulation was 5,280 for the month of May, but if you find that it was only 3,120 in the previous May, you may justly conclude that the work of your library is increasing. In the circulation category comes the record of the hall or library use of books, the reference use, and the books outstanding at any particular time. Hall use is very difficult to keep in a free access library, but an attempt should be made to do so. It is not quite synonymous with reference use. If a man sits down in your library and actually reads a novel without taking it home, that is hall or library use, but not reference use. If he merely refers to the same book to find out about some character, that is reference use. It is evidently hard to separate these, and many libraries do not attempt to do so. In others, where there is a separate reference room, any use of books in this room is recorded as reference use. The number of books outstanding should be taken at least once a month, simply by counting the cards in the circulation tray. This item is very easy to ascertain, very accurate, and is interesting and useful in more than one way. Last in the list of the necessary items of statistics comes that of readers or users of the library, the most interesting in some ways, and the most disappointingly vague. Presumably, your users fill out some kind of blank form of application and have their names entered in a book. It is therefore easy to give, as is usually done, the total registration and its annual increase. But this is evidently not the number of actual users of the library. Who are the actual users? The expression itself is vague. To be complete, you should have the numbers of those who have used the library within 1, 2, and 3 days, and so on back indefinitely. There is no place where the line may be drawn between live and dead cards. But such statistics are too elaborate to collect regularly, so that the ordinary library leaves this subject in its pristine mistiness. There are some pretty variations of it, however, which may be gone into if there is time. For instance, how are your users divided according to occupation? This you can ascertain from your applications, provided the applicant is required to state his occupation. Here again, the result is for registered users, not actual users. Again, how are your users distributed topographically? The result of this inquiry may be shown graphically on a map, and it is particularly valuable when one is thinking of moving or of establishing a branch, but it takes more time than is at the disposal of most librarians. Here, I believe, ends the enumeration of necessary kinds of statistics. In each kind, the collection may be reduced to a minimum, but the librarian must, if the library is to be maintained at all, keep a cash account, count the books, and make some kind of a list of them. Also, if at all possible, she or he must be able to tell how many books are circulated and how many users' names are on the books. This is the minimum. The maximum is fixed only by considerations of time and usefulness. First among the kinds of statistics that are not absolutely necessary, but interesting and often useful, is that of routine work done. Letters written, visits made, cards written. This may easily be carried to excess. Then there is the enormous class in which the data are obtained not directly, but by comparison of other data. To this class belong the financial comparisons already noted. For instance, by comparing the circulation of separate classes with the total, we get class percentages, a very useful type of statistics. By comparing circulation with books on shelves, we get the average circulation of each book, etc. There is no end to the varieties of this class of statistics, and they may be rated all the way from very valuable to useless or even nonsensical. The whole class would require a separate paper to discuss. Let all these statistics tell the truth. Let them be clear. Tell exactly what they mean. Otherwise, they will certainly mislead and are worse than useless. It is well to accompany every table with an explanatory note telling exactly how the data were obtained and whether they are of a high or a low degree of accuracy. In case you do not know, for instance, whether the word juvenile, as generally used, means the entire circulation among children, or the circulation in the children's room, or is merely short for juvenile fiction, decide what it shall mean in your case, and then state distinctly what it means. Read over other library reports critically, and when you find any statistics that are vague, see to it that that particular kind of vagueness does not occur in your own tables. And after it is all over, ask yourself, now what shall I do with all this? In this paper, only a few suggestions can be made. Take first the financial data. If you find that your town is giving less per capita or less per book circulated than the average, let it be your business to make it give more. There is a task that will fill up your spare moments. If you are paying for books more per book than other libraries, try to buy more cheaply. If your inventory shows a great loss of books by theft, try to reduce it next year by greater vigilance. If your circulation is decreasing, ask the reason why. Get at it if you can, and remedy it if possible. If your circulation shows a sudden increase in a particular class, investigate that and meet it, if proper, by increased purchases in that class. If a class that should circulate well has fallen, try to find out why. Is your collection in this class small and poor? Make it richer and larger. Has interest in the subject fallen off? Try to stimulate it. In short, instead of regarding your work in connection with statistics as done when they have been collected, think that it has not yet begun. So far as your own work is concerned, let them serve only as an indication of the weak spots that must be strengthened and of the promising growths that must be encouraged. There are statistics and statistics. Some are dead, some are alive, vitalized and vitalizing. Not all of the library's work can be stated in figures. The largest part, the best part, you cannot put into statistical tables at all. Yet rightly used, your statistics may so guide and direct you along the lines of least resistance, even in this broader and finer work, that your energies may be put forth in it to the best effect, that you may aim right, and that your shots may not go astray. End of Section 7.